Hello and welcome to Love Fools with me, your host, Terri Lee-Shield, where we are hopelessly devoted to exploring and embodying the universal language of love. Love Fools is brought to you by Love School, where we explore loving self, others, and everything. Join us there for deeper exploration at www.loveschool.uk. Now for today's episode. Hello and welcome to this episode of Love Fools. I have Mari Craig with me today and I'm really excited to have her here. Mari presents also on She Speaks and the Small Steps to Wellness show, which is really exciting. It's a great show about making those small changes, incremental changes to create a big change in your life and find health and wellness. So thank you for joining us today, Mari. Hello.
Thanks for having me on.
I'm really excited to have you here and have a chat. We've had a great chat before. I was on your show, wasn't I? And we can talk, can Mari and I.
Yeah, that's never been a problem.
Yes. So I'm dying to hear a bit more about your side because I was talking quite a lot last time. So I am really looking forward to hearing from you. We are going to do the Love Fool show. I'm going to ask you our questions and then we're also going to do a bit of an extended, which will be a podcast for members only of Love School, which I'm really excited to hear about too. So let's get started. Do you want to do a quick introduction for yourself? Tell yourself what you do.
So my name is Mari, and before anyone asks about my accent, I'm from Norway originally, but I've lived in the UK for 14 years, which was never the plan, but here we are, 2 kids and a husband and a dog later.
Yes, the universe has these ways, don't they, putting people in
places. It all kind of comes together. I used to be a secondary school teacher, but now I'm studying culinary medicine in order to be a nutrition coach, and that stems from my passion when it comes to nutrition, whole food supplements, which I've been working with for the past 6 and a bit years. So I help mainly mums, actually, just a bit random, but mainly mums who want to be able to be more present for their children energy wise and have a strong immune system and those kind of things. So I help them. And so the culinary medicine studies are going to be an extra tool in my toolkit, so to speak. So that's it.
Wow, yeah, that's brilliant. And it's so important as well, isn't it, to like you're saying, for moms to fill yourself up first, to make sure you've got the energy you need. And
I didn't get that at first. When I had my first child 9.5 years ago, I remember my midwife came home to me on those visits and she said to me, she took one look at me and she said, "You're not looking after yourself, you've got to look after yourself." And I thought she'd completely lost it. I thought, how am I supposed to do that? I've got a baby here that's barely wanting to breastfeed. She's just come out of intensive care. How am I supposed to look after myself? But I get it now because I know that was a form of self-love, isn't it? If you don't look after yourself, how on earth are you going to be able to look after other people? So that's I get it now. A bit late, but yeah.
No, I mean it's a good way to be. You know what? Sorry, I'm just gonna. If you hear a shift in the sound, I just realised I'm using a mic, and then I can hear you coming through my speaker. So I have no idea what that's going to sound like. So I'm going to pull the mic out. Yes, hopefully that'll work fine. Sorry about that, listeners. I might even edit that out. Sorry about that.
No, I know. Keep it all in, raw, authentic. So
yeah, good. Exactly. This is how life rolls. But yeah, no, that's super important. Especially if you're raising a child and going through something like what you just described, like in intensive care, like having to spend that time really, really nurturing yourself in it all. That must have been quite an intense experience for you.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't that long or that bad or anything, but I think I've just realized the past few years that unless I look after myself and unless I sometimes put myself first, I can't look after other people. And thinking about what you talked to me about, before we started, like what does loving yourself mean and what does loving others mean? It does mean taking time out for yourself. Because if I'm around my family, I know for myself personally, if I'm around my family all the time, I become a horrible person to be around. It's how it is. I I just went to, Tesco now, other supermarkets available, but I just went to Tesco now. And my husband was like, kids, can you come with mommy, help her out? And I said, you know what? I really don't mind going on my own. And I was just buying toilet paper and stuff, but it was just, it's nice to have that time to just be on your own and look after yourself. Because by doing that, you become a much more, in my opinion anyway, pleasant person to be around. But I think so many of us, and I wonder if this is a mum thing or a female thing or something we've been taught from early on, that we need to look after other people first, and we put ourselves on the priority list but so far down and we never get to it. So and I think it could lead to a lot of resentment, to a lot of bitterness. It certainly did with me, until I realized that actually looking after myself means that everyone's happier.
Yes, exactly, because what more do your kids want than a happy mom?
Exactly.
A mom who wants to be with them.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Gosh.
Exactly. I don't think it's bad. I don't think it's selfish to say, do you know what, mummy just needs 5 minutes on her own. I think that's highly necessary, to just sit and do nothing. And also I think it teaches our children, I mean, coming from a parental side, it teaches our children to value themselves as well. They say, okay, mommy values herself enough to say, do you know, I need to just be on my own for a little bit, or I need to, I don't know, just have a cup of tea in peace, or I'm going to go for a, walk around the block just for me. They see, okay, it's important to look after myself. It's okay to look after myself. Mommy does it, daddy does it. This is how I can treat myself and make sure that I'm well nurtured.
Yeah, you're like teaching through example there, aren't you?
Exactly. Yeah. Took me long enough to understand, but
I love that. Right, so on Love Feels, we tend to ask the questions, right? What is self-love? And we've just explored that a little bit there with regard to filling yourself up. But let's spin a little bit of an angle on it, because I am super interested in nutrition and how that supports us. So from your learning in nutrition, what is self-love with regards to that? How does that work?
Yeah, it's a tricky one, because you often think and that having a tub of ice cream at the end of the day is self-love, because we're treating ourselves. And so yeah, exactly. But sometimes that can be, I mean, maybe not the whole tub, but maybe that can be, or the glass of wine or whatever it might be. But I think and it's taken me again a long time to understand that I am worthy of all of these things, because a lot of, when it comes to nutrition, certainly with some things, and certainly like with the whole food supplements that I work with, it's a financial investment. So self-love is understanding that you're worth the financial investment, and that you're worth the time that it takes to get better health. And that's taken me a long time to understand that actually I am worth that. It's okay to spend that money. It's okay to kind of take that time and look at kind of what food nourishes me. I think it is a form of self-love, but then also there is a balance to be had. And I've gone a bit full circle, because I used to be so obsessed with everything being so healthy that I would then deprive myself of things and feel miserable, and that's certainly not self-love when it comes to nutrition.
I love myself so much, I'm going to make myself miserable because I can't have a bit of cake.
Exactly. Or you have the cake and you think, oh no, that's really bad, I shouldn't have done that, and then you punish yourself. So now I've come to this realization that self-love when it comes to nutrition is finding a balance that both serves your body and your mind. And sometimes I went to this conference a few years ago, and there was a nutritionist there who talked about varying aspects of nutrition, and she said there's also something, or health, there's also something, she said, called social health. And she said that might be a glass of wine and a pizza with your friends. And that's not something that you might call, I don't know, nutritionally dense or, great per se, but it's really great for your mind and for your heart. And that's, that's just as important, I think. And is that the dog whimpering?
That's Daisy. Oh, sorry, listeners. My dog is a little bit
Yeah.
She's a bit hormonal at the minute.
It's surprising that we haven't heard mine yet. He's going to bark in a minute, I'm sure. So it's
how
how it is.
You haven't got fancy recording studios and you've got to do everything from home.
Yeah, it's how it is. It's how it is. So no. So I think with regards to self-love and nutrition, I think the main thing for me is not to punish ourselves, because that is certainly not self-love. And if you have, gosh, I don't know, the chocolate or the white bread or the whatever stuff really isn't great for you, if you get then on top of that going to punish yourself for it, it's like a double whammy. So if you're going to have anything, enjoy it.
There's an interesting dynamic. I think I've done something in the community before about the contrast of discipline and punishment.
Yeah.
So this might lead on to our next question as well. So often, depending on how you're brought up, you're taught that punishment is discipline.
Yeah.
When actually, I think discipline and punishment are different things, aren't they? It's like you might set that boundary for yourself in a disciplined way, but if you're going to punish yourself if you don't meet that, that's definitely not healthy and helpful, is it?
No. And this is where my small steps to wellness sort of mantras come from as well. When I set up my little Instagram account, steadily growing years ago, I was like, what kind of phrase can explain what my journey's been like? And it's been small steps, and it's been just like seeing like, oh, what can I do here or there, without making it a big deal.
Yes.
Or consuming or punishing, as you say. So that's been really important to me as well. And do small steps. And also, if you fall off the horse, just get back on. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. How is that then? What about loving others? So how is that transformation or understanding in yourself then translated to how you love others? Is that dynamic in that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the most obvious thing to mention there is my family. And I was just listening back to a podcast that I did with the nutritionist about artificial sweeteners and how our children are bombarded with it, and how it's potentially not so great for their microbiome, for their gut, all the good bacteria that live in our intestines that regulate so much in our bodies. And I think for me, then building up my health and learning what can serve me is allowing me then to share that love to my children and my friends and my family by sharing with them things that I've learned that might be good tools for them to use. So it's just extending really what I've done for myself to others, if they're open to it. That's quite important as well, because not everyone is open to it, and that's absolutely fine. You can't push people up a hill if they don't want to go up that hill themselves. But I think sometimes also loving others, especially when it comes to my children, is also making those unpopular choices. And I often say to them, look, I could say yes to all the things you asked me, but it wouldn't actually make me a very good parent. So sometimes I'm saying this because I love you. Sometimes I'm saying no to a second ice cream or a second apple juice or whatever it might be, because I love you. And I explain why that is, so that they have an understanding of it's not a punishment. It's coming from, we've had one, that's great. Now let's have the water, or let's eat something else, or let's do something, because our body can, enjoy a little bit of this, but actually too much it might not enjoy. So let's have this instead. And that is a form of loving others, I think. It might not come across as that because you're not showering them with gifts and treats and sweeties and all the rest of it. But in the long run, I think that's really, for me anyway, what it means to love others, to sometimes make the unpopular decisions.
Yeah, it's like setting that boundary, isn't it? It's like, oh, we can enjoy this, but let's not indulge in that to the point where it harms us.
Exactly. And also like, saying,
have the bit of cake, but you don't have to eat the whole cake.
No, because you would feel sick.
Yes.
And that's not loving yourself or loving others. No, and it's like, just finding that balance. And it is tricky sometimes, but I think, again, loving others. I mean, I'm seeing this as from the perspective of a mum of young children, they're 9 and 6. I think often to explain to the children why you're doing something, it's incredible how much they understand.
Oh yeah, definitely.
It's incredible. And just saying, look, we're doing this way, and then also become something special. So if we had, I said to them, fruit juices every day, it wouldn't be very special, would it? So they get that. Yeah.
Yeah, and then that kind of brings back that treat aspect.
Yes.
You know, if you're having sweeties like every day, like you say, or 3 times a day, or it's not actually a treat, it's a habit. But if you don't have it, and then it's like, "Oh, guys, let's get some treats, let's get some sweeties," it actually feels like that treat again, doesn't it? And you can enjoy that special time.
Yeah,
Especially
exactly.
when making things like, my mum was pretty strict. Not that I was aware of actually, even as a kid, but we didn't. In some ways, with nutrition, no, but we weren't allowed pop and we weren't allowed sweeties. And I think actually it was an expense thing.
Yeah,
You know
no,
what I mean? It was just
absolutely.
like
Yeah,
your
it
mum
would
was
have
like
been.
just couldn't afford it. It was like, you're not getting sweets
No.
every day. You're not getting
Yeah.
pop because it costs a fortune. So we just didn't have it. So when we then did go to say like a birthday party or something like that, that was something special, and you kind of like got to enjoy those things more.
Yeah.
And plus I didn't get like you say into the habit of it, which was especially I think important when you're taking
I
care of
think
someone
so,
else.
and I think, yeah, but I think maybe also if she'd explained to you like this is why, then you'd been. I mean, if you didn't question it, that's fine. But like my children will question stuff, and I also say to them, look, I can spend money on all these things, but we wouldn't be able to go on any holidays because there wouldn't be any money left, you know. So we kind of have to make choices sometimes, and
Go for the big goal.
exactly. And I think then it's like, oh, okay, I get that. Yeah, that makes sense, you know. And I didn't get ham and cheese on my packed lunch when I was little. My mum was like, no, ham is like 20p a slice. You're not getting that. You can choose one or the other.
Yeah.
Not doing that. Yeah.
Good decision making skills involved in that as well. Like, oh, what do I want today?
Exactly. But my friends did. And she's like, no, but I'm not doing it. But then, you know, she probably spent the money on other things.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
What about then? So one of my favorite questions, because it can be a bit more abstract, and sometimes I wonder about the question and I wonder about the word, but it does seem to fit best. What about loving everything? Can we love everything?
Yeah.
We touched on it a little bit in the conversation, but can we love everything? Or are
And
there
everyone. It's a good question. I mean, I was challenged a while back to kind of see the divine in everything, and to see that everything and everyone has its purpose and its role and its you know, positive sides. And it's challenging because sometimes you get so triggered by certain people, you get so triggered by certain things or certain, I don't know, things in the media, what have you. But I'm learning, I think, to understand that everything is there for a reason, to help me grow, to help me maybe. The thing is, I'm stopping myself here halfway through, but I've spoken to so many people who've experienced big trauma, and they've come through the other side and now are kind of almost grateful for what happened because it's helped them in other aspects. So it's probably hard to love everything all the time, but I wonder whether hindsight, or whether the wisdom that comes from something way after you've experienced it, if that can allow you to go, do you know, I'm actually really grateful for that because of what came after.
Sorry, I just love that. I just really picked up on that, what you said. You don't have to love everything all the time, do you?
Right.
Like sometimes timing is really important, and we are where we are.
Yeah.
You know?
And sometimes things or people or whatever might, in a way, kind of serve a role or serve a purpose for us to see, to shed a light of something with ourselves that we can, I don't know, improve upon. So you can be grateful to, you know, certain people just really trigger me, and I'm trying to sit back then and go, okay, what is this trying to tell me? What can I learn from this? What can I take from this to improve on myself? Or what is this trying to teach me? And then if I get through the other side, as it were, I can actually be grateful for it because it's helped me evolve. So I guess that would be loving everything, just not straight away all the time.
Yeah, because even like when we were talking, you know, when you were saying with your kids about setting them boundaries, like you don't know to set a boundary of what you don't tolerate or won't tolerate in your life, what's your non-negotiable until you meet it.
Yeah.
See? Like, you don't even consider that until you're presented with it. And then even if that choice is actually, I don't want that in my life, it kind of reinforces something within yourself, doesn't it? To like bring that out of yourself.
Yeah, no, exactly. I listened to a podcast with Bear Grylls the other day, and he talked about that maybe it isn't good to peak too early and be the one that wins everything at school, or be the one that is the most athletic or the most academic or what have you. When you're right in the middle of it, you can imagine when you're 10, 12, 14, 16 years old in school, you want to fit in, you want to excel at something, you want to be the best at something. But actually, in hindsight, maybe not being that person might help you train your resilience muscle or your perseverance muscle. And actually, then as you grow and get older and have that wisdom, you're grateful for the struggle, perhaps, that you experience, because it's taught you something. And maybe having things come to, and I'm speaking a bit from experience here, because I was very academic at school, and I didn't know how to deal with failure. And all of a sudden, I wasn't the best, and I had no idea how to cope with that because I hadn't trained that muscle.
Yeah, it's like a brand new experience, and suddenly it's like the concept of not being the best or the cleverest or the brightest.
Because that's how you define yourself, yeah. So loving everything might then mean actually, eventually coming to realize this was a good experience for me. I love that this happened because of where it brought me eventually. But then also, I say that because I think it's also important to allow bad feelings or negative feelings or negative thoughts to have their place. Because if we're going to subdue everything and go, no, don't cry, it's all fine, it's all fine, it's all fine, then at some point we're going to be like inside this pressure cooker, aren't we? So I think it's important to explore and to experience all the different feelings.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what happened for me, for sure, for like such a long time. I, not even consciously, I don't even know if I necessarily did it consciously. I was just avoiding, like you say, them certain, I would never cry, or never let myself get admit I was tired, or ever, like, I don't know what it was in us, I just wouldn't allow that. And then it built up to the point when eventually I did, they call it a breakdown, I think, for a reason. Like I really, the floods of emotions that were repressed once I allowed it. And now I personally, I've really learned to love them, like, that feeling of hitting my limit and being tired and just allow myself a rest. Like, I used to avoid it, I used to be scared of it or hate it or whatever it was, but now I love it. I get to have a rest. Yay.
Yes, exactly. And your body's been trying to go, Terri, come on, time to take a little break now. Come on, Terri, hello. And then it's like, okay, bang, now.
You can't move. You're now like flat out for 3 days as you recover, which
exactly. Was I've been trying to tell you, mate, you haven't been listening. So yeah, big guns.
Let's go a bit full circle, because so actually nutrition was super, super, super helpful for me with that.
Yeah.
Coming to terms with this is maybe a great angle I would love to talk with you. I don't know what your diet has always been like, but so for me, when I started to look into nutrition, I had to really, really be a bit disciplined and reteach myself to love things I didn't like. So, for example, I was never particularly big on like green vegetables, certain foods that I knew that were good for us, that I needed for my body, but I didn't like the taste. And I had to persevere and just have a little small steps, just a little bit of spinach. And now I love spinach. Like I can't imagine my life without spinach, or like I love, that more savory taste or bitterness, some bitter fruits. And have you found that, or do you find that a lot when you're talking to people?
Yeah. I mean, I grew up with very good food, as in tasty food, but I don't think I grew up with any knowledge of sort of how to put together a meal or anything like that. But I did grow up with home cooked meals, very much so. My dad cooked a lot, my mum baked a lot, so that was great. But I always thought, kind of, in order to have a weight I was happy with, I needed to eat very little and move a lot. So for me, it was a bit of an epiphany when I realized that it's about kind of more what we eat and when, instead of instead of how much.
Oh.
That was a bit of an epiphany for me. And also just realizing that you can, I mean, apart from now, because I've got a very big tummy at the moment for the next 6 weeks. But apart from now, I'm kind of, and this was never a goal, by the way, but I'm kind of the slimmest I've ever been, and I'm eating the most food and most delicious food I've ever eaten, because I realized that in order to feel well in myself and maybe shed a couple of pounds, because I did need to do it, it wasn't about punishment. It was actually about loving myself enough to put the right foods into my body. But certainly, I mean, who likes kale the first time they try it? I don't know, not me. Now,
sorry, I'm laughing because kale and I grow kale, and you're like, it grows so easy, and you're like, I've got so much of it, but oh, you're disgusting.
Yeah, but it's so good for you. Yeah, I mean, I didn't like any of that stuff the first time around, but now, the more it's kind of like the opposite of sugar. The more sugar you have, the more the body wants sugar, right? The more I find that I have fruits and veg, and my children are a bit the same, the more that they crave it. And I have, my youngest is a bit challenging with food. She said to me the other day, I'm a picky eater. And I thought, God, no, do not label yourself as such.
Don't do that, I am.
No, exactly. You are you. And we are practicing trying new foods. But I do notice that the more I expose them to things, the more they will eat it and the more they enjoy it. And that's certainly the same for me. So my body goes, yeah, yes, please. I like that. I'll have more of that. But it wasn't always. I mean, the amount of vegetables I eat now, I mean, it's huge compared to what it was. And it's not something I forced myself to do. It's more, I guess it's a combination of the exposure, so my body wants more, and then knowledge about what it does for you. So you think, it's good to have more. Trying to not say should there, because do whatever the hell you like, but it's good to
always pick up on that word, like should.
Yeah, exactly, because there's
the rebel in me
is like, and there's a punishment at the end of it, isn't it? No, but it's not a straightforward line, and and I have days where I eat junk. I mean, but that's okay. It's just the majority of the time I now crave better foods. And it's interesting, your body changes so much that what you used to think of as kind of treats, now they just make you feel yuck. Somebody gave me a Mars bar, and I've had it in my pantry for the last 6 months, and I kind of, my memory is the Mars bars are really, really nice, really, really tasty, but I know what's going to happen. I'm going to eat it, I'm going to feel sick, and I'm going to be annoyed. So my body's come to a certain point now where actually it wants more of the good stuff. So I will now reach for, and this sounds insane, but I'll reach for the 85% chocolate and enjoy that so much more. But that doesn't come overnight, and I think that's important as well, because so many people go, I can't do what you do. I was like, yes, you can. Absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, no, I agree that I couldn't have even touched. I mean, I still kind of go up to the 85%. I'm getting about 70% dark chocolate, but I wouldn't have touched dark chocolate. I mean, I'm not a big chocolate eater, actually, to be honest. But
I love it.
But yeah, like now it's got so much more depth of flavor, and my body responds so much more positively to the dark chocolate than milk chocolate.
Yeah.
But that's really cool. I'm gonna I have got some really juicy things I want to speak in a bit more detail about, and I think we should slip off into the podcast.
Let's do it.
We'll leave a little tease for the listeners. So anyone listening, if you've loved this chat, it's actually going to be exclusive for the Love School community, and I'm going to dive into some of Mari's answers and do a deep dive and find out a little bit more about you and your personal journey.
Yeah. There's a few things.
I've loved the chat. Doesn't it go so quick? Once you start chatting, it's like, whoosh, where did that time go?
Yeah. No, I'm not. I've always been. I've got a little Miss Chatterbox coffee mug that my children gave me a few years ago. Has to be in the right company. I find that I value my peace a lot more, and I find big groups and stuff like that trickier than I used to. one-to-one is definitely my preferred way of communicating, and I think we just need to kind of stop ourselves now before we go on too much.
Yes, exactly. No, I'm looking forward to it. But thank you everyone for joining us over on She Speaks, and for listening to Love Fools. I do this every time. Thank you very much, Mari, and we are going to go over for a deep dive onto the podcast. So thank you very much, listeners. If you've got any comments, you can catch us at loveschool.uk. And Mari, where's your stuff? Where can people get your
Probably the best way now, because excuse the tractor that just drove past. The best way at the moment is on Instagram, and my handle is Small Steps to Wellness.
Small Steps to Wellness over on Instagram. That's amazing. Yeah. Thank you so much. We'll chat in a second. See you later, listeners.
Take care.
Hello. Mari and I, we've just clicked record. We've just recorded our Love Fools. This is now our extended the podcast for the members, and we just started to have a really deep conversation because Mari is pregnant. You're very pregnant. She's just been showing me her belly getting really big, and we were talking about, so Mari already has, she's got 2 little girls, 6 and 9, did you say?
Yeah.
And she's expecting her first boy in 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And we were talking about like we were just saying about the responsibility of being a parent, isn't it, that you're not always popular when you're trying to set boundaries and what that means. And we were like, right, let's click record because this is going to be some juice.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting one with the whole trying to get it right as a parent. I always say to my eldest, who's 9.5, that I don't always get it right, and I try to say sorry and explain, and I said to her, look, you're kind of teaching me how to be a parent as much as I'm teaching you how to be a child, because you're my firstborn, and so it's often easier to raise your younger sister because I've done it once before with you, but you're kind of helping me. And she I remember when I told her that, she really loved hearing that. And I said, I don't always get it right, and sometimes I just do what I think is best, and it might not always be perfect, so we're kind of in it together.
I just got all jeebies hearing that. I mean, God, like what an amazing gift to give your child to say that. Like,
yeah, but I think it explains to her also, though, because it's bloody exhausting trying to be right all the time.
Yeah, and it's so honest and vulnerable and strong like that. Yeah. God, how much I would have loved to hear my mother just once in her life admit I'm not perfect, but sometimes I make mistakes. Like, God.
I don't like admitting it.
Like, I'm eldest child, by the way.
Yeah. I'm the eldest, and it's just, and there's a lot of responsibility that comes with that. I think I don't know if I told her that to kind of stop her from being angry with me about stuff. It could have been, it's probably a bit of self-preservation on my part going on there, but I think just it's good for her also to know that I'm not doing things to be mean. Sometimes I just get it wrong, and sometimes I might raise my voice when I shouldn't because I get it wrong. And I said to her, like she gets it wrong, I get it wrong, we're just humans, we're just trying to figure this out together. So yeah, I kind of wanted to be friends when we grow up, as she grows up, instead of, but at the same time, I also say to her, first and foremost, I am your parent, and it kind of is my job to make sure that you're okay. And but there's no manual,
And even if there was, we'd all disagree about it anyway, wouldn't we?
Yeah. Oh gosh, tell me about it. The amount. Yeah, but this is also, when you were talking about, what is self-love. And I think sometimes, obviously, for me, it's also being open to learning from other people, but it's also when you feel like something is so true for you inside, it's about standing strong in that faith as well and going, no, I'm doing this. And it might mean that others will, I don't know, hate me for it or dislike me or, I don't know, unfollow me on Instagram or, gosh, what could be worse.
Yeah,
but this is important to me. Yeah. And I used to not be able to say, as clearly, like, no, this is important. I'd be sort of hiding or, shying away from awkward conversations. But if there's one thing that the last couple of years have taught me, is that some of my opinions are going to be unpopular no matter what.
Yeah, exactly.
And so it's what it is. Yeah.
You might as well stand by the ones that really mean something to you.
Exactly. Yeah. Don't have to be, you can pick your battles, right? But if it's something that where you go, do you know what? This is actually important.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, that was a big thing for me as well. I was so afraid. I had really, really blocks around my throat. And
yeah, me too.
So some things I could talk about and I would advocate for other people all the time.
Yes.
But would I stand up for myself and say, well, I really care about this, or this is really important to me? I couldn't do it. And now I think that was for me, that shift into self-love. It was like, well, actually, you know what? It's like, it doesn't even matter if I'm wrong, because I might change my mind if I get new information. It doesn't matter if it turns out that that wasn't perfect. This is what I feel. And then building that relationship with myself, it's like I can trust myself now. I can trust myself to speak up. I can trust myself to set boundaries. And that has been massively healing, like on a catastrophic healing level, you know what I mean? Like that was, for me, that was my big shift.
And trust yourself enough to say to somebody afterwards, apologies, I was completely out of line. Yeah. I didn't, this is what I thought at the time. I see now that I was wrong. I'm sorry.
Yeah, exactly. And being able to take responsibility for that. We do change. And some things don't, some things we can be quite fixed in, but regardless, it's like being able to trust that process and yourself, isn't it? And just have that respect for yourself.
Oh, this takes me back to the nutrition bit though, because so often I always thought like, those, growing up as a girl, I think, I mean, probably it's the same for boys, maybe not as much, I don't know, but it's like, it was all about being, pretty and slim, wasn't it, really? And tall. And I was so short. I was as short as when I was always a little one, and I carried that with me.
How tall are you? I've only ever met you on a screen. You never know.
Oh, yeah. So this is the only thing I know in British measurements. So I'm 5'3", which is like 160 centimeters. Yeah, I reached the floor is what I like to say, but I was always like, oh yeah, they just have it so easy, all those people, and I can never do that, and kind of turning myself into this victim. But then I learned, like, if you want anything to change, you've got to actually take radical responsibility for yourself and go, right, I might have been dealt this hand, but this is what I'm going to do about it. Yeah. And go like, it's on me. Nobody's coming to save me. And that sounds horrible, but it's true. And I'm the one that needs to look after me first. And I am the one that has to stop blaming other people, expecting other people to come to my rescue. I'm the one that has to look after me. And it's scary, but it's quite liberating as well.
Oh, totally. I think that was a big process for me as well. And the reality is, like, so there was times in my life where people did step in and rescue us. And actually the resentment of that, like years later as well, I'm like, you know what, if you hadn't done that, I would be in a completely different place. Like, I didn't ask for that. You're like, I was vulnerable, and like they swept in and like took over and saved me, but I didn't have it. And like years later, when you suddenly come around, you're like, I didn't even make that choice. Like, I didn't make that choice. Like, I might, even if at the time, subconsciously, I might have felt like, oh, it would be nice to be saved. I didn't ask for it. I didn't, it just happened. So even if we were saved, it's not necessarily how we would save ourselves. We've got to
and also, when you asked me earlier, what does it mean loving everything and everyone? I think what I'm learning with my children, especially, is that you want to be able to fix every problem for them. But if you do that, you're removing a learning experience for them. You're removing their experience and their opportunity to go, I'm not in a good situation now. I need to fix it for me, Whereas if somebody does it for you all the time, first of all, you can't then ever do it on your own if you have to. But also, I think you are deprived of that opportunity to learn from something. Yeah. And take that responsibility. Yeah. So as much as it pains me to see my children being unhappy, not that they're unhappy, but like if anything happens, right, I have to say to them, look, for example, say to my youngest, you can be a bit cheeky sometimes, you can choose to be unkind, or you can choose to do all these things, and I can't stop you. By all means, go ahead. Just know that there's a consequence for that behavior. And allowing her to have that experience of, working that out for herself, so that she in the future will go, oh yeah. And it's the same with nutrition. I've been working with the health coach who specializes in, none of us like the term, but fuzzy eaters. And she said, if you never allow your child to choose what goes on their plate themselves, if you never allow them, to choose how much they eat, how are they going to learn to listen to their own bodies? And when they grow up, you're not going to sit next to them and go, as a 20-year-old, you're going to go as a parent then, eat your greens, they kind of need to understand that themselves.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, those experience, and there's a phrase that's got me, comes back in my life every now and then. The way you do one thing is the way you do everything.
Yeah.
Food, I find, it can be really insightful, actually. There's so many, I mean, I love nature, and obviously food is connected with nature, and there's just so many metaphors in that. But that phase of like being a picky eater, or it's like really holding tight boundaries, and then that once you can allow that, if that's something like you say your child needs to explore, or even as an adult you're unpacking, that'll ripple out into other ways of your behavior. Like it's a control thing, isn't it? Being a picky eater, it's a control thing.
Oh, yeah.
If we try to like stop that, dead, you're kind of almost taking away some of the power they're trying to find for themselves. It could be reflective of a lot of things. It's not just necessarily about the food always, is it?
Oh no, absolutely, because it's one thing they can control, isn't it? What goes into their bodies.
Yeah. And that's important. Even if we don't always like it, it might be infinitely frustrating as a parent if you're trying to get your kid to eat a balanced diet and all they're going to eat is,
Oh gosh, tell me about it. As a sort of two nutrition coach to be, I mean, just it's painful if they're seeing them not eating enough fruits and vegetables. But also, all you can do is inform and inspire, and and then see what happens.
Yeah, because children mimic as well. So I picked up on something we had in our chat, and love was, I've written a couple of notes down, so if I randomly chuck some things at you, because it's like I'm like, this.
Well, yeah, please do. I've got baby brain, remember.
Which was one of the things you said was that you've learned. So you were talking about over on the other episode about changing your mindset around food. So going from that whole idea that I think is shoved down a lot of women's throats, which is eat little and exercise a lot to stay thin and healthy, and then actually you saying how you now feel like you're the healthiest that you've been, that you are slimmer, that you are more fit, but actually you eat more. And you were talking about the value that you've learned of what to eat and when.
I mean, it's just little things. I mean, it's sometimes we think that in order to feel good in our own bodies and have energy and more to give and all the rest of it, that is just such a difficult process, right? And it's been a bit of a revelation for me to understand that just, I don't know, stopping eating an hour before I used to in the evening, or starting my day with a glass of water and waiting a little bit before I start eating, or I don't know, having more nuts and seeds in my diet. It's just understanding that it isn't rocket science. It's just going back to basics a little bit. I think it's been such a revelation, because as I said, I always thought I just had to eat less. And then if you like avocado, you're going to be struggling then, because avocado, they are full of calories. I'm telling you, nuts and seeds full of calories. But when I realized that it wasn't about that, it was about eating things that nourished me, that filled me up, kept me fuller for longer. Just simple stuff. I mean, it became such a positive thing then. It became, instead of me focusing on, oh, I shouldn't be, because I've just eaten, or I shouldn't be having this, I shouldn't be, it was more like, right, what can I be cooking today?
Yes, what can I have? What can I enjoy? What flavors?
What do I want? What do I really fancy that's going to be exciting to try? Or what new recipes can I try to put together? Or how many ways can I make flapjacks,
Yeah, I've seen some brilliant things that you've shared, some cool recipes and stuff you've shared on Facebook.
And it's just annoying that kids can't take nuts to school. Yeah, exactly. On mostly on Instagram, but it's just annoying that kids can't take nuts and seeds into school, because the amount of nutty and seedy flapjacks they will be.
Why is that? Is that for allergies or?
Yeah. So there are some children with severe allergies, so they're not allowed to. Nobody's allowed to take anything in. So, which obviously you have to respect, right? Because it's quite a severe allergy. But yeah, no, so it's been one of those. It's been turned food as a teenager, and probably up to my early 30s. It was one of those. I feel like I always had to control how much I ate, and always had to kind of think, okay, I've had this much, then I shouldn't be. Why am I already hungry? That's no good. Or I should be just, waiting a little bit longer or whatever, And then I realised.
Sorry, go on.
Pardon?
No, carry on.
No, but just realising, like, oh, I've been looking at it from a completely the wrong way. It's not about how much, it's about, okay, the reason why you're hungry 2 hours after your breakfast is because it hasn't been balanced. You've had way too many carbs. And I don't count anything, by the way, but it's just knowing that, do you know what? Add a handful of seeds and you'll be good to go until lunch, and you'll feel so much better and have so much more energy and feel less grumpy. It's been such a positive experience, actually.
What about, so I'm really fascinated. I think I mentioned before about the link. So I work a lot in gardens, right? And I learn so much from nature, like I really do. And then I translate that back to my life. And food is obviously a big part of what I do, like grow food and stuff. So what I noticed in a garden is about the diversity gives a garden strength. It makes it more resilient, because if you have, so a bit like monoculture agriculture, if you're growing all the same things, then you're going to attract all of the pests that really love that one thing you're growing, and then you've got to use chemicals and all that, and then you need really high fertilizer, blah blah blah. So when I've added diversity into a garden, it means that the garden's more resilient, because there's lots of different insects, that then you don't get infestations and stuff. And so I love, like, I don't know enough about it, but I think this is something you tapped on in the other show. Is that like the same sort of thing when we're eating with our gut health?
Yeah. So I like to talk about, you need a quantity. We need to eat a lot more fruit and veg, because you will know this. Our soil is so depleted of nutrients. It's unreal. I think I heard in a podcast that we need to eat 8 oranges to get the same amount of vitamin C that our grandparents got from 1 orange, right?
Oh,
yeah, it's insane. I know, it's painful. And also, if you don't grow organically, there's the fruit and veg, they have to fight a lot less for space, so they can grow a lot quicker, which means they're less nutrient dense. So they might be looking nicer and bigger, but actually there's most likely less nutrients in them. So we definitely need more. So I think science is now saying sort of 10 portions every day, 10 fistfuls. And then I also like to talk about quality. So the quality of what we're eating. And so, for example, growing your own is amazing, because you can pick it when it's ripe, instead of picking it a month before, so it can go in a container ship across the sea and get to us, so that it's ripe for a couple of days in the shop before we throw it away. So you've got quantity and quality. And then the last thing is variety, because we have so many bacteria in our body, and they thrive for different things. And I also like to think of kind of the different colors. It's quite it's saying it in a simple way, but the different colors kind of have different roles in our bodies. So if we just ate green stuff, I would be missing out on, the reds for the heart, or the white for the immunity, or, this is very simplistic. This is how I talk to my children about it.
So much. I do.
But it's so important.
Colour is really important to me. I love colour, and I think if you've got a colourful plate of food, like, I feel like I want a winner there, because I know that I've got, like,
instead of kind of counting how much you eat of anything, maybe just count how many colours can you cover. And
it looks beautiful then as well.
Yeah, it's so much more appetizing. Exactly, that's it. I mean, I'm just looking at my empty lunch plate now, and I had beetroot on, and it just looks beautiful. There is this guy down in, I don't know which county this is in, but there's a restaurant called Applegarth Farm. And there's a man there called William Benson, who has an awful lot of tower gardens, which is an aeroponic growing system. I've got one at home. So if you go onto my Instagram, you might see some pictures of it. And we went to his restaurant, and he was showing me around his towers. So basically, it's this big tower where you can grow fruits and vegetables. And you have this pump in the bottom, in sort of bucket full of water and minerals, and all organic minerals, and it pumps up the water with the minerals and trickles it down into all these openings, and you can grow fruit and veg, anything that doesn't require soil, because you grow it in rock wool. And this is one of the products that I work with, that I can, that I sell. But he was showing me how he'd planted these special flowers on the top, so that insects would go to them instead of eating his produce. So talking about monoculture, for example, you wouldn't have those things and look after those plants because you think, I just need to grow the, I don't know, tomatoes, let's say. But he said, look, having these flowers means that I don't have to have the fertilizer, because not the fertilizer, the herbicides or pesticides, because all the insects that would normally just eat up my crops, I think actually it was strawberries he was talking about, they go to the flowers and they're happy. My strawberries are happy, everyone's winning. So
yeah, definitely, that's like so important, and it's
so
so reflective, isn't it? Like, because I imagine, I don't really know enough about it scientifically, but in my mind, what I imagine is our gut's a bit like that, like, and that can be how we get like ill, like with IBS and different things. So if you're eating the same thing all the time, then like the certain kind of bacteria that likes to eat that thing is gonna get, like, there's gonna be loads of it.
Yeah.
But because there's then not anything to counteract, so there's no other bacteria in there to counteract the growth of that one, it becomes imbalanced, and then we get ill, or we can't process certain foods,
or just like we might get ill because there's not enough variety, because all the different different types of foods produce different types of like, for example, short chain fatty acids, which is a substance that helps us with a variety of things. Don't ask me now because of my baby brain, I can't remember a thing I'm saying. But the different colors and the different phytonutrients, which are plant nutrients, they have different roles, and they feed different bacteria, and they do different things, and they help different immune cells work better. So variety is super important, really, really, really important. There's so much going on in our gut that affects our mental health, our immunity. We can talk about so many things that come from the gut, or where the gut plays a vital role. The variety is really key. And so, for example, when we eat, when we have to take, and it definitely has its place, believe me, when we take what am I talking about? Antibiotics, we have to then also counteract it with probiotics, because we are killing off an awful lot of good bacteria in the process of killing off the bad bacteria. And it does have its place. I mean, my daughter started her life on antibiotics for a very good reason. So I'm not saying they don't have a place, but we just need to be mindful of treating our gut microbiome the best way possible.
Yeah, and respecting that as like it's an ecosystem in itself, really, isn't it? Inside us.
Exactly. I mean, it's quite insane. I mean, it's millions of bacteria. They're just getting on with their life, and I
do on it, like stuff like that. Like that's like my little, where I get all excited, because I love that, like, there's a universe within us, like, of a whole different life forms that we don't even consider, and we're actually feeding them. We're not even feeding us. We're like feeding this gut bacteria that creates our health and gets rid of what it doesn't want, and we're feeding the cells that make us up. It's like, it's so like
I mean, and gosh, it's such a rabbit hole as well. I mean, when you start looking into these things, and I can get a bit overexcited, it's just like it's just mind-blowing. And I think that's also where a lot of people go, I don't even know where to begin. It's too much information. I do not know where to begin. So to those sort of friends and people who come to me, I tend to say, kind of just start with eating real food. And giving your body proper rest, so you can rest and digest, and do those things and repair in the night, instead of having to digest all your food.
They're small, but they're important. We are just I've seen the same, just like fancy houseplants, make sure you're drinking clean water, getting your nutrients, and getting some sunlight. Like, just do those 3 things and sleep.
Yes, exactly.
And your
when the sun shines, I'm happy. I walk around singing to myself. I don't care. I'm like, looking outside now.
Like vitamin D saved my life. Like I can't stress that enough. I was so ill. I was so mentally ill, right? And I spent years, with the doctors not really helping and on different medications. And some of the consequences of that was really serious, right? And I went to the doctor and I was desperate. I says, I cannot live like this. And I says, I'm not taking any more of them pills. I says, if you can't, I says, you need to give us something proper. I says, give us something natural. Give us something that's going to actually change something for us and not just cover up these symptoms.
Yes.
And he went, do you know what you want from Miss Terri? He's like, I can give you a vitamin D prescription. And I was like, well, what will that do? He went, I don't know, try it. And I was like, so he gives it on prescription, which now I just find so random, like eat some mushrooms. But anyway, he gave us them on prescription. And honest, in 3 days, my depression lifted. And like now, that just blows my mind. And I'm like, people underestimate the power of nutrition and the power of supplements. And that just obviously didn't cure my depression. But what it did was it meant I had some energy. It meant I could go out for a walk. It meant I could I wasn't in fight or flight because I was vitamin D deficient. And I mean, I could go off on one because I have to take other supplements to support that, because you need magnesium to support your vitamin D and blah, blah, blah. But just that one, like say, small step changed everything. Yeah, and then I realized, I need that.
No, but this is exactly the same. And vitamin K2 as well, to ensure that the calcium goes to your bones instead of to your arteries, where it can clog up things. But this is exactly what I had as well. I had no surplus energy. I thought I just had to go around feeling sick and tired all the time. And I was introduced to some whole food supplements that are literally just powdered fruits, vegetables, and berries. Nothing fancy. I mean, I think that's quite magical in itself that you can put all of that into a capsule. But we
just dismiss it. Nothing fancy. It's
well, actually, it's kind of fancy. Yeah, it's kind of fancy. And it gave me the surplus energy to then look at other things in my diet. Then that gave me surplus energy to then start looking into exercise, and to then start looking into, coaching and all of those things. And sometimes it's just the little things that you need to kickstart, this cascade of changes. But it's about exactly what you said, that having a surplus of energy so that you can even consider looking at other things.
Yeah, because it's just outrageous, really. Like, after someone who's lived with depression or anxiety, to just say, oh, well, just exercise. I couldn't even get out of bed. How are you telling us I'll just go for a run? Well, I was I can't even get downstairs and have a shower. What are you talking about? But I say, just taking that, I could. It was something I can get out of bed today and I can make a sandwich. But
that is exactly it. That is the small steps, isn't it? You go, do you know what? This is all I can do right now. And I speak to people because I work with this cleanse program. It's 10 guidelines, and we offer it to people every month for 10 days. And it's free for anyone to join, but you have to sign up to a product package. But it's nothing majorly expensive at all. But for a lot of people, they see those guidelines and they go, no, I cannot even contemplate doing that. So say to them, just pick one or two.
Yeah, exactly.
See how you go with the one or two, turn that into a habit. And then when you do that without even thinking about it, add on 3 and 4. And before you know it, you'll be doing them all. But just starting somewhere, doing something little, taking a vitamin D supplement, taking whole food supplement, starting with a large glass of water in the morning, going to bed an hour earlier, little things like that. Over time, it can make a huge difference. But the problem is also, I think, in society today, that we want results 5 minutes ago, right? So I think that's also why often we will go to a doctor or whatever. I need some medication that's going to fix it now. Yeah. But as you said, it patches it up instead of finding out, why am I feeling like that? Yeah. Why is this happening to me? I had a winter cold every single year, and it was one of those colds that started as a proper sort of coughing and spluttering and all the rest of it. And after a few weeks, you had this dry cough they just couldn't shift every single year. And it was just one of those where they said, yeah, it's normal. I haven't had it since I started on those whole food supplements, and all that was increasing my fruit and veg intake but quite substantially, but that's what it was.
Yeah.
You know?
Because your immune system can now respond to an invader, because you've got all this diversity in there. You've got all these different...
And it doesn't mean that things never happen, that I never get poorly or what have you, but it means that I've done my bit to ensure that the chances of me getting really poorly are smaller than they were before. And I think there's a lot to be said for also knowing that you have done everything you can. Just the control, I mean, how the mind plays its part in keeping you healthy as well. Shouldn't be underestimated.
Oh, definitely not. And then your recovery, I'm assuming your recovery when you do then... Exactly.
I spoke to somebody on my podcast, a good friend and colleague of mine, Jeff Montague Smith. He was on, I don't know, episode 23, 22, something like that, of the Small Steps to Wellness show. And he was saying that you know, we shouldn't underestimate placebo. It's a real thing. Like,
it's scientifically proven.
Exactly.
Again and again and again.
Yeah, but we talk about it as if it's like, oh, it's just placebo. So, but so what?
That's magic, honest. Right, I can't believe you mentioned that, because this gets me off on one, right? So the placebo effect, right? People dismiss that as like, oh, it's placebo. I'm like, what? You've just said that magic of the mind is scientifically proven, and it's undoubted in pretty much every single study. They know that exists, and I think it's about 25% of cases, right, that people can just heal themselves because they believe whatever you're giving them, right? But then think of this the opposite way, which I never hear people talking about, which is if 25% of the time you can heal yourself because you believe it's going to help, that also means, because I love duality, right? 25% of the time you make yourself ill because you believe that something you're doing is going to make you ill.
Yeah.
So even if, like, something you're doing can be, so imagine just everything is neutral. Not everything is neutral, but just imagine it is. The more we were talking about a little bit, the other thing about punishment. So if you believe eating that cake is going to make you fat and ill, eating the cake is going to make you fat and ill. Whereas if you just believe that this cake is just, it's benign, obviously, yeah, if you're going to eat a whole cake every day, it's probably going to make you fat and ill. But the belief in it makes you more fat and ill quicker.
Yeah, because it's the negativity. I'm not an expert in this at all, but I've been using a bit of what's it called, neuro-linguistic programming and basically and hypnotherapy, and talking about what you want to happen and picturing it happening or having happened already. The power in that is just phenomenal, and we've used it for things like for the children who are being dry in the night and picturing themselves waking up in the morning being dry, not like I didn't wet myself, but I'm dry, this is what the weather is like, this is what my room looks like, this is how I'm feeling, and picturing it. And I was listening to, and I can't remember which podcast this was. I am such a sucker for podcasts, hence why I go to Tesco on my own so I can listen to them. But somebody was saying that the body doesn't know the difference between real and imagined things. So if you and he was talking about how sports people, they've gone through the whole match in their head beforehand. You know, if you saw the interview with one of the England players yesterday, because I don't know when this is going to go live, but England
England won the Euro, didn't they?
Yeah, and she
said, lasses.
Yeah, but she said I knew we'd win. Yeah. I'd seen it. I can't remember exactly what word she was using, but the body doesn't know the difference between real or imagined fear, which is why some of us, me and my children included, are so scared when we watch the football live. And that is real, fair enough, but like watching films and stuff, our brains are totally thinking this is real.
Oh God.
So if you picture yourself being healthy, being well, I'm not saying that's going to cure everything, but it's certainly not going to make you feel worse.
Well, it becomes a possibility, because if all we can envision is us getting worse or getting sicker, or which is what our fear response does, it's what our mind does. And actually it's true. Like, again, like I look a lot at nature. If we don't maintain ourselves, things decline. Things are always moving towards death, right? But if we don't take the time to imagine that things can get better, we don't think it's a possibility. So why would you invest in something that's not possible? If you suddenly think, oh, well, this is a possibility, I can get well, then you invest in it. You're prepared to put that energy into making that a reality. And that's tangible.
Yeah.
That's like real and tangible. It's not woo-woo, it's like real.
I feel a reel on Instagram coming on from this conversation, Terry. Yeah. I've got some ideas from this, but it's true. If you feel, you know, if you focus on all the things, my coach said this, worrying is praying for things that you don't want. Yeah. And asking for things you don't want. And I think picturing things going your way and picturing things being positive is kind of the opposite then, isn't it?
Yeah, it just makes something possible.
Yeah,
especially if you've never even dared to imagine that could be possible.
Yeah. But you have to also have self-compassion, because I think the body, so I noticed this when certainly when I have people who start using the whole food capsules, because what happened was I had such great experiences with them, and my children did too, that I became an affiliate with this company. But what I see with some people is that they have a bit of detox symptoms when they first start, because the body's like, too much goodness, you know. And a lot of people will then go, I can't do this, and they stop, because it's they know the state they were in before, and that might be really uncomfortable, that state, but it's a known uncomfortable state. But the unknown might not be a straightforward line to the better side, the unknown, and also the fact that it is unknown makes a lot of people stick with what they know, even though that's potentially probably a worse off health state to be in.
Mm-hmm. Oh, totally. I mean, like,
the devil, you know, right?
Yes, exactly. And you can get used to that and comfortable with that, and
exactly.
It's I mean, that the ripple effect of that is, you touched on something just a second ago, right? Well, not a second, a few minutes ago, and I've got experience in the media industry. You know, when you were saying about like watching like a movie or something and our body doesn't know the difference, like that is really true. Like, people don't give us enough power, or as they, I think that they could or would or should, that word, to what we see on a screen, to media, and especially like media that's given us an emotional reaction, propaganda media especially, action movies, horror movies, all this stuff, right? Because our body's invested in it doesn't know the difference, right? And I've lost what I was gonna I've lost the train of thought. What did I even bring that
it will come back to you.
That just totally went off on one. What were we talking about just before? You've got baby brain, I've got no excuse.
Yeah, what's your excuse, hey? I'm sat here being kicked about the room. But it is interesting what you say about this, that our brain thinks a certain way. When I'm upset, or if something worries me, I feel physically nauseous.
Yes. And you respond to it, and it's all just created in your mind. It's not real.
I feel so sick.
Mm-hmm. But that's what I was talking about. That's what I was going to bring it up. So about the unknown. So if you're sitting right in this energy, so whether it's an energy of worry that's going on in your mind, right, or whether you're watching a movie or watching a TV show, I really, really restrict my consumption with media, right? I consider it just as important as what's physically going in my body, right? So I don't watch certain shows or film types, genres at all. Like, I don't want that. And if I do, I watch it very consciously for a specific reason. Because otherwise, right, if we create that as our normal, the high drama, the violence, some comedy shows are really, if you take away the laughter, people are so rude to each other. You're like, oh my God. And your brain is just absorbing that as real, as normal as life. And then you just become that. You become it, and your body responds to it. And then you wonder why people are stuck in fight or flight mode, or, you know, can't improve their relationships or can't improve their health, because they think, you know, watch an action movie. When do they stop and eat? When do they sleep? When do they do anything human in an action movie? And if you're sitting watching action movies the whole time, then your body just thinks, I don't need to eat, sleep, or be well. I don't need to,
or relax.
Or relax, or even respond. So as a trauma survivor, when do you see, right, in a TV show, movies, the trauma will happen, right? This drama or trauma will happen. when you see them going, I just really need to like take some space myself to process this trauma. Like they just get back on in the next episode and they're fine and the next drama's coming on. And that was like a big thing for me, like taking time to process things. And like same with your food, like taking time to eat and then rest and let yourself digest. Like that happens in every area, doesn't it? Like mentally we have to digest things.
Absolutely. I need time to relax, to step away, and my children do too, and I'm trying to show them, to explain to them that it's okay to miss out on things, because actually you're replenishing your energy. Because, and especially my eldest, she's quite sensitive like me. Like if I see somebody in pain, I get physical pains in my body, and it's exhausting. And it starts on top of my thighs, and it goes down almost to my knees. And if it's to do with my children, or other children that are young, I get literally sort of pains in my uterus, physical pains, and it's exhausting. And so I know that I need time to actually rest from that. But we are so groomed, I think, to feel selfish about doing those things, or that we have to go, hustle, that
even like weakness, isn't it? People think it's weak to rest.
Exactly. Gosh, what a pleasure it is to rest and just sit and do nothing, right? No, it's and it is really important. Like after I record podcast and after this, I know that I will just need to sit here for a few minutes and just go, I can't do anything. You know, because then you know that otherwise you'll be the person that nobody wants to be around. You don't want to be around you.
Stretching your energy out. Like I see energy quite physically sometimes, and it's like, so we're connecting and our energy is stretching into each other, and then when we detach, like if you haven't taken that time to gather yourself, bring yourself back into the present, into that space. I'm still connected to you, I'm still connected to the conversation, I'm still like in that. And then if I'm then wandering off, how much is my energy then being stretched? You know, it's like I think that's really important. I value that very much now. Like I say, I always take time, especially after doing a one-to-one or connecting with somebody on a podcast or anything like that, just to then take some space. Even if I'm like doing work, say like on my computer, like from a website or whatever, something like that, creating any sort of content, I then like to take myself back into myself out of the content almost, because it's like I don't want that attachment to that. You know, you're posting on Facebook, and if you haven't took yourself away from it in a way, it's like, oh, do they like it, or you know what's happening, and that's taking your mental energy, physical energy,
and it's incredible how much better you'll feel in yourself if you can let go. I always thought like being healthy was about nutrition and about movement, and it most definitely is, but it's about everything else as well. It's about how you treat everything surrounding that as well. So I can talk to you about nutrition. I can talk to you about, you know, how to change your diet around and all of those things. And I'd love to talk to any of your members about it, and share the things that I've learned. But I also have to say, and this is where I would send them on to somebody else, that there is also so much to be said for loving yourself enough to appreciate that you're worth it, that you're worth feeling good, and it's about shifting the way you view things, because as you said, if you're depressed, you can't just go for a run, you can't just, you know, you need to sort a few things out, you know, and you need to take it slowly, and it can't just be nutrition, or it can't just be movement, it has to be other things as well. Health is such a what's the word, multifacetorial, is that the word in English? I'm not sure, foreigners running through here, but you know, it's so much that goes into it. You know, I can be super healthy nutrition wise, I can do lots of exercise, I can be in a horrible relationship, I still get poorly. You know,
it's going to drag you down, isn't it?
Yeah. So this is, if there's one thing I've learned, is that things take time, and things that there's no quick fix for anything.
Well, this I mean, set a boundary here if this is pushing out. I've just never asked you about this, right? And we've never talked about it, I don't think. You're married, I believe. You're married. it sounds like you've gone through this transformation in yourself where, especially from having children, where you've kind of had to really address certain like things and change your lifestyle. And we talked to the other one how that started when you were first looking after a baby and your midwife said to you, you need to fill yourself up first. How has your partner, like, how has he responded to all this?
You know what, that's really interesting.
Together or separate, or
yeah, so it's interesting because and this is me stereotyping all men obviously, but men don't ask for directions. They like to find things out for themselves, right? So for example, when I introduced him to the whole concept of fruit and veg and berries in a capsule, not to replace but to add to our diet, he was like, now I'm fine with my Barocca, thanks very much. And a year later, when clearly he had been listening to me in the background, talking to people and seeing how I felt, he was like, yeah, go on then. And he
let you do your thing, and then
and then there's an awful lot of love and respect there, I think, because he's like, you do you and I'll do me, and that's fine. But also and I came from this idea that I don't have anything to teach him, whereas now I realized that just from experience, from seeing how he actually takes on board the stuff I say to other people maybe, and then now he's like, oh, that's interesting, oh yeah, and then all of a sudden I hear him using the phrases that I use to people, and he talks to his friends. So it's interesting. I've always been sort of quite apologetic by doing certain things because it might seem a bit woo-woo or whatever, but I'm positively surprised again and again about how well it's being received by him. I mean, and he's a bit more pragmatic than me. And he goes, for example, I've been looking into human design quite a bit.
Me too. That's just come back lately.
Yeah. And I'm like, this might be a bit, I don't know, but trying to kind of excuse myself for even mentioning it. And he goes, look, it doesn't matter if it's real or not. If it's giving you tools to sort of function better, to feel better in yourself, then go for it. By all means, that's great. So, yeah, I'm always sort of surprised by how I think he's very sort of typical, no nonsense, sort of straightforward. But actually, he does take on board an awful lot of what I say. So.
Yeah, it sounds like he's supportive then. He's not belittling what you're doing, which is
exactly. And I think a lot of people do have that, sadly. And then you start
questioning. Plus, you're not shoving it down his throat either. He's not trying to like take it away from you, and you're not trying to push it onto him.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I'd like to think so anyway. Yeah. But now he's totally on board with how, and he's stricter with the kids when it comes to what they should be eating, for example. Yeah, so that's interesting.
What's your human design? I'm totally curious about that now.
So I am a splenic projector, a 6-2.
Oh, wow. Right.
Yeah, so that has explained the whole deal for me, and I'm still no expert on it, but the 6s kind of start off as being 3s, so trial and error. And that has certainly been what the first part of my life has felt like, kind of never finding my place particularly. And I was always also very sociable. I couldn't bear to be alone. I had to have people around me, but the 2 in me obviously needs that time to replenish, and I'm seeing that now. And it's interesting, the sort of, I like to call it like the negative emotion with projectors is bitterness. And when I read that, it was one of those, that's the one word I have always used to describe how I feel when I don't feel good.
It's like it's so relieving, isn't it? Actually, like that's felt that with my human design, and I looked into it a few years ago even, and I thought, yeah, I've got that, and then it's just come back in my field like over the past month, like really strong.
Yeah.
And I've looked at it again, and I'm like, I've really realigned on it, and I'm like, wow, like it does feel, you go like, this makes sense, doesn't it? Like, wow.
Yeah, it really does. And the whole varying degrees of energy that projectors have makes a lot of sense. And my husband is a generator, and he gets up every morning and does the same thing, and has the same amount of energy, and just does. So I obviously, until I understood what was going on, I felt like I was comparing myself to him, feeling utterly useless because I didn't have that. And now I understand that when I do go, I can do an awful lot. and then I need my rest, and that's okay.
And then I'm done. Yeah, I'm done, and you can leave me alone, please.
Exactly. So it's an interesting journey, definitely, and it's also interesting to look into my children. And I think sometimes why I clash a bit with my eldest is that our designs are so similar, so similar. So I see a lot of the things that in her.
Nice dynamic there, mother and daughter dynamic, really similar in that.
Yeah. So
mini me to see your shadow through.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see what this third one becomes, because so far I've got 2 projectors, and
have you? Gosh, so there's 3 projectors in your house and 1 generator.
Yeah. So there's a lot of projector naps going on. Yeah. Or certainly what I try to instill in them, that it's okay to take time out and replenish, because you need that. They've always needed a lot of sleep. Compared to a lot of other children, and it makes so much sense now. Yeah, it's fascinating. You manifesting generator.
Yeah, I'm a manifesting generator with sacral authority, and I'm a 3/6.
So, right, yeah. Oh gosh, full on for you then.
Honestly, when I read it again, I was like, oh, this makes so much sense. And my thing is frustration. If I'm frustrated, then I'm off track. And even the sacral thing, like when I tap into that, like my body, like it's been my whole lesson, my whole trial and error for my entire life has been trust your instinct, trust that no, and I never did.
No, but this is kind of similar for me then with the splenic authority. It's like if you had to choose yes or no, like just listen to yourself. What is it? So tell me now. And then now I realize, oh my gosh, yes, what does come out for me, yes or no, to whatever question might be, is like that. I know that is the answer now, but I used to go, oh, I don't know.
But what will people think of me? Or I really like that person, or I really wanted to do that situation, I'll just do it anyway. Disaster.
Yeah, it's and I've always said like, because I'm a Libra, I hate making decisions, and I can't make decisions, and I struggle with decisions. I've always sort of labeled myself as that, and maybe also I've been worried about speaking openly about, for example, the last couple of years, the importance of nutrition has been completely neglected, in my opinion. But I've been really worried about speaking about it because of all the hate you get.
That was my one of the first things I got censored for on social media was when the whole pandemic thing, and I said something as radical as you can look after your immune system with a healthy diet. Oh my God, like I was not prepared for that. The past 2 years has like really made, like, see, when we were just saying at the beginning, like about standing up for yourself and what's important to you, like that past 2 years has like solidified that completely.
And this is it. Like I would doubt myself so much and go, well, maybe I said something wrong, or maybe whatever. And now I'm just like, oh well, I can't win you over, and that's fine.
But someone wants to hear that. Somebody might want to hear that.
Exactly. But once you start trusting, the process of trusting yourself is incredible. Where you can achieve. So the human design thing has been very, very interesting to look into, and it's explained an awful lot for me. An awful lot. Yeah.
Oh, it's fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah.
There was one thing, so I've just because this is the way my mind works, and I've written this down as a note, and we haven't talked about it, but it touches on a lot of things that we again, so it's almost like a metaphor, but I've seen this thing and I can't even remember now what it was on. It was something about food, right? And you were talking about the quality of food and growing organically and stuff, which is something I'm really passionate about. So our community garden that I designed, we grow everything organically, and not only organically, we try and get it all as local as possible. So everything that we produce on site, so we create our own compost and all the rest of it, right? We have strawberries, and our food tastes amazing. And like, apart from the fact, like I say, it's fresh, so we pick it and we can eat it. The taste is like so much better. So when you said about the grandparents, when they would eat an orange, and we need like 8 more oranges to get the same amount, right? So I seen this thing, and somebody said that the reason our food doesn't taste as good is because of the depleted nutrients in the soil. And actually what nutrients translate to is better flavor.
Mm.
So it makes whatever you're eating taste stronger. So the stronger the taste is telling you like how much nutrition is in it. So
Yeah, there's probably a lot to be said for that.
Less of it.
Yeah.
And I just love like the whole metaphor of that, right? Like I just feel like it just sums up our conversation like so much. Like, so you can have, if you've got better quality of something that you really need, you can have less of it and it does way more for you.
Yes.
And you get all of these extra benefits to it.
Yeah, but this is exactly, I remember we used this this meat box. They do other things now, and obviously all other meat boxes are available, but this one is called Field and Flour, and they're based down in Somerset, and we've used them for I think 10 years nearly. And I remember the first time I had chicken from them, I just thought, oh my gosh, is this how chicken is supposed to taste? This is amazing. And it was just incredible. And now we focus on, we have less meat, so we have smaller portions of the meat, and we have much more of the veggies, because it's so flavorful and so filling that you don't need that much, because the quality is there. I have to add though that if you can't buy organic, because it is pricey, if you can't grow your own, or if you don't have a tower like me, I mean, you can get one, but they are an investment. But then it's always better to eat fruit and veg, even if it's conventionally grown, rather than not eating it. That's quite important as well. And you can clean it with, vinegar solution, or you can, somebody I spoke to, this was amazing. She has a spray on her countertop with vodka.
Right? Yes, it's definitely for cleaning my vegetables with.
She sprays it. She says, "So the berries taste so good," but it but it cleans off the vegetables that are conventionally grown.
Oh,
wow. That was amazing. I might have to try that come September when this baby doesn't need. Yeah. So it's always better to eat fruit and vegetables. Then not because you can't get it organically, is what I mean. But I mean, there is a flavor difference, no doubt about it. Yeah.
I mean, talking like my family have had their head done in by my explorations over the past like 12 years now, and I keep saying to them like, organic is better, buy organic, like taste the food. And then my mom eventually, like she's actually got involved in the garden. She's not a gardener, right? So she'll say, oh, I don't like that. I'm like, you haven't even tried it, right? So she would say, I don't like strawberries. I'm like, how can you not like strawberries? Like, who doesn't like strawberries? I was like, will you just try one, right?
That's like me with my daughter.
Yeah. So she tries it. And like, that's like, anyway, that's a whole other story. So she tries it. She's like, that's delicious. I was like, yes, it's delicious. And she's like, it's much better than what I've had before. I'm like, because we've grown it and it's fresh and all this. So her partner, he's had like loads of, I think he was like, I don't know if he's actually got a diagnosis for Crohn's, but he's had like loads of problems with his nutrition. So for years, I've been like, look, if you just do one thing, because they're not, like you say, organic is expensive, but if you've got a couple of good income, just flip, it'll make such a difference. And I've always said, I'm like, just start buying organic. I'm like, it's going to like really change. And he won't, he's dead stubborn. But I got a message right through my mom. So this is after like a decade, right? They didn't have the mushrooms he liked in Tesco's. Other supermarkets are definitely available. And they ended up buying organic mushrooms, right? And he said, I got a message through. It was the best mushroom he's ever had in his life, right? And I just burst out laughing, and I was just like, when you want to go, I told you so. The child in you is like, I told you so.
But you know that you can't be saying that, but you're just like,
I can't be saying it, and it would be utterly pointless because he wouldn't listen anyway. But the fact he eventually had that experience, and now it's not actually like that, just after 10 years, that one experience, that small step will, I know it's just going to have that ripple effect where it's like, oh, well, what does this taste like if I have better quality? What does this stay with the meat? It's tangible, isn't it? Like,
oh my gosh, so
your body goes, oh. Like I don't eat a lot of meat. I followed a vegan diet for a long time, And I'll actually get my meat from a local farm, and it's run by, it's dead romantic story. It's his ex-vegan. She was a diehard vegan as well, and she fell in love with a meat farmer. But they're an old couple now, but they're dead canny, and they're still really active and, you know, running a farm. So all the meat is again, it's like local, it's grass-fed, it's organic. And it gets killed at a local abattoir, and they do a blessing, and they sell it. I buy it in just small portions because it's just me, and I only have it a couple of times a month. But my body, when I have that, is like, thank you. Like, you know what I mean? It's like so tangibly the benefit, you know, I feel it straight away. And I personally, I love my veggies and everything. And it did have some benefits being on a plant-based diet, but especially for my cycle, I couldn't maintain it. I got really ill around my ovulation and my menstruation because I wasn't getting enough iron and vitamin B's and all that stuff that you can only get from your meat.
Well, you have to eat an awful lot of plants, put it that way.
Well, I like I say, I couldn't maintain. I couldn't get enough in. But I find that also like fascinating, and it just the same metaphor just seems to fit with everything in your life. Like,
exactly. You don't need an awful lot of one thing. You need a little bit of lots of things.
And good quality.
Variety. Good quality, variety, quantity. But certainly if you don't have the variety or the quality, I'd say if I had to choose one, I'd go for variety, because through that you get the quantity anyway, don't you? And if you can then, you know, try to have a few things with really good quality. Obviously it depends, food prices are going up.
Gosh, they are.
But like as I say, you know, lentils are still cheap. So there's ways of getting around that challenge. But we have one body, right? And it's such a cliche, but we have one body. We need to look after it.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So that's that's kind of where I'm coming from. It'll be interesting to see now with this third pregnancy how it will affect me, and how I'll go about feeding and all of those things, because obviously we're forever, you know, evolving and developing, and certainly I've been on a journey, and I think when I fed my first, I didn't feed my second. So now with all the new things I know, what will happen for the third?
What have you found? So it's like 10 years really between your first pregnancy now and your third, isn't it? So you're 10 years older, but 10 years wiser. And what you were saying earlier, like you feel fitter and healthier. Have you felt a comparison in the pregnancies with you?
I mean, it's harder because you're a parent, and I have a dog and as well, and so you are forced to be quite a bit more active. So it's been hard because you can rest a lot less. But it's the first time that I haven't had to take any iron supplements, for example. Wow. Yeah. So I always had to take iron supplements for my pregnancies from quite an early age as well, early stage. So that's been very good. I've exercised all the way through. Not heavily, but lifting weights and things like that, resistance. And I think, yes, I've been tired, very tired, but I think that's quite normal. But I felt less sluggish. Yeah. So it's been interesting, but obviously it's so bloody long ago, isn't it? I can't remember.
Yes, our body, our wonderful mind just goes, I'm going to erase all them horrible symptoms of pregnancy so you don't forget and you'll get pregnant.
Exactly. It is still a massive change to the body, but I think knowing also what I need to do. Yeah. I didn't know that, you know, eating certain vegetables, or I don't know, upping my grass-fed meat intake would be really beneficial. I didn't know that first time around. And now it's like, oh, they're telling me I need to eat iron. I'll have a venison burger when I go to my local pub. Awesome. Grass-fed, I get my omega-3, I get my iron from the meat. And, you know, it's locally grass-fed. It doesn't have an, awful lot of air miles attached to it. But I didn't know that back then.
No. It's going to be dead interesting, isn't it? Like it's like almost starting like your journey again, but it's like different. It's different this time, isn't it?
And I always said that for a joke, like if I have a child, like, oh, I wonder how I would do things. And so
you're gonna find out.
The universe kind of went, all right then.
Careful what you wish for.
Exactly. So watch this space, I suppose.
Oh, definitely. I really wish you well with the last stages of your pregnancy as well.
Thank you.
I hope
Thank
the weather
you.
doesn't get too horrifically hot again. Bless you. I kept thinking
Oh
when it was so
gosh.
hot, I was like, poor Mari, like in this heat. Everyone else is white. I'm like, yeah, but are you 7 months pregnant?
Yeah, exactly. No, in an old English house from the 1800s where it is held on to all its heat. I mean, my house was like 30 degrees plus for however many days, and it was one of those. But you know, we are the creators of our own life, is what I like to say. So
I chose this house.
yeah, but people go, "Oh, you're so positive," but I'm like, "Well, I've got no choice.
Yeah.
You know, this is where we're at, and just you have to deal with it." Doesn't mean that I kind of I don't allow myself to have negative feelings or anything like that. I mean, you know, I curse and swear like the next person, but it's also like it is what it is. So what do we do now?
Yes.
You know,
But I acknowledge that I'm sweating profusely and I'm physically exhausted and melting.
On that note.
But now what am I going to do? Put the fan on.
Exactly.
Have a bunch of moment with the hair.
Yeah, exactly. And on that note, the sun is shining. I've shut the windows to, one of the windows anyway, so that it wouldn't be so noisy. So it's pretty warm in here.
No, thank you so much for your time. I know you've got you're going to go and have a bit of time with the kids now, you said, didn't you? Nice place.
Yeah, they've been left to their own devices, literally their own devices, for a while now. So I'm going to take them to a park or something, I think, or I don't know, go buy an ice cream.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
I'm that mummy today.
Enjoy. Thank you so much for your time.
That's all right. Thanks for having me. Thanks. Hopefully it's been useful to those who have listened.
There's so many nuggets here. Like, this is a really good one. There's going to be loads for people to take from it, I think.
Fantastic. Yeah, just get in touch if there's anything you want to chat about and know more about.
I'll put all the details on and everything.
Yeah. Fab.
Right.
Thanks so much.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Love Fools, where we have been exploring and embodying the universal language of love. Love Fools is brought to you as part of Love School, where we explore what it means to love self, others, and everything. For more information, come and have a look at our site, www.loveschool.uk.